So welcome to my YouTube channel. That's what we call the good life. It's September and there really is a chill in the air, so I'm going to take you for a little tour around my allotment so you can see how my produce is doing, and I'd love to hear how yours is doing too. Now, if you've not already subscribed to my channel, if you could please do so, because you'll get lots of helpful hints and tips all throughout the year from my allotment, my home garden, and from time to time my home kitchen. Now we're up at the top of the allotment here and we're by the rhubarb. I've had a really good crop of rhubarb this year. The plants are starting to look a little bit tired now. There's still quite a few stems there, and if you wanted to pick a couple you could do, but what I would do is just check whether they're still firm or not. Some of them are starting to soften, and because the plant's starting to flop down, so it might be that you've left it too late. Personally, I'm going to let mine just drop down now, and you don't need to cut it down, you just let it die down naturally, and I normally put a little bit of manure over it over the winter just to give it a little bit of feed. I've taken all of my cooking apples off. This is my Bramley apple tree, and I've made some lovely compots and cakes with them. Sometimes it's a challenge to work out what to do with everything, but just do a little bit of Googling and there's lots of different options there. And quite often what I did this week was I mixed some Bramley apples with some of my black currants out of the freezer. So I kind of varied the mixture of cooked fruit that I had, which I often have for breakfast with porridge or yoghurt, or you could turn it into a crumble, so you can do various things with it. I've got my pear tree over here, which I've got to say is a little bit short of pears this year, so I do need to get those off, but I have got a few quite large ones over on the end there. And there's a few around the front as well, so I really must get those off. And pears, most pears ripen off the tree, not on the tree. So you take them off and then you take them home and then they start to ripen. You can still cook them when you've taken them straight off the tree though, because that speeds up the ripening process. So because I've got so few, there's every chance I'll probably take mine home and cook mine and make maybe a pear cake or maybe another compote with it. I have got quite a lot of compote in the freezer ready to keep me through the winter. So if we move down, so my raspberries are, my summer fruiting are obviously finished. I do need to prune those, which I've not done yet. My cherry tree, I still only had a handful of cherries off of it, which was a little bit disappointing. So I've never really won with cherries, but hey ho. And my blackberry bush, I honestly have no idea what's happened to that. We don't know whether it's died or what's happened. It's a real shame because it was a really, really fabulous plant that provided lots and lots of amazing blackberries, but this year just was not our year, so I honestly have no idea about that. The ones in the hedgerows were doing absolutely brilliantly, so I've picked some of those, but my own sadly have beaten me this year. My Braeburn apple tree is over there. I've had a few drop off of it which I've picked up that weren't too badly marked, which I shall eat, and I think it's time for me to start getting those off. So I must come up here with a box or something to sort those out. So my gooseberries have slightly been overshadowed by the weeds, so looking a little bit, that's one thing I've noticed. We've genuinely been keeping on top of our weeds this year, but for some reason over the last week or so, I think it's the amount of rain we've had probably, loads more weeds have come up, so I'm going to have to put a slot in my diary to come up here and get some serious weeding done, and no doubt my cameraman will give me a hand as well. So underneath those weeds there are some gooseberry plants, which we did get some really quite lovely gooseberries this year. Here's my parsnips. I don't know how they're doing yet. They were a little bit late going in, but we've got plenty of leaf on them, but there's no rush. I can leave them in. I can't see the tops of them as to whether there's an awful lot there, but you can see a little bit of a parsnip, but I think I'm better off just leaving those. I've got my later carrots that I put in there, which we did weed, but as you can see there's loads of weeds pushing up against the net, so that's going to have to go on my list of to-dos. So I'm gonna be busy the next few weeks weeding, I think. This was a stray squash plant that self-planted itself, and normally I just whip them out because I don't know if you know, but anything of that kind of family, the squashes, cucumbers, melons, courgettes, pumpkins, all those kinds of families, they really easily cross-pollinate, so the chances of getting a true plant is so unlikely. I always plant from fresh seed. That being said, I never pulled that one up, and I seem to have two lovely big butternuts on there which aren't very ripe, which might not, I'll have to get off a little bit earlier than I would like to, and another great big one over here. I've literally done nothing with it and they look like butternuts to me, so we'll see. I'll obviously leave them on for a little bit longer to see what they do. I've got some spring onions here which I've got a little bit oversized, which is perfectly okay. My father-in-law does this regularly, lets his spring onions get a little bit bigger. I'm going to grab a couple to have with my dinner this evening before I forget. I've got some more spring onions that I can put in there, although I am hoping to plant some overwintering garlic, which I've not got yet. If anyone's got any good ideas where to get garlic from, it's ridiculously overpriced, it seems, so I do still need to get some, but it would be nice. So I'm going to try my garlic in there, because typically I've been growing it in the ground, and even though I've dug quite a lot of organic matter in, I think our soil is still a little bit too clayey. So this, on the other hand, is compost that's coming out of our composter, and it's a lot softer, so I'm going to give my garlic a go in there, and I'll be putting that in probably in October, but I've not got that far yet. I'm digging my potatoes, which have been pretty good this year. The only thing I've had is I've had some splits on them, and I think it's just been the erratic watering, they say. Let me try and find, I can't find one now, but there were definitely some. There we go. We've got some splits on them, but they do seem to taste perfectly good, but I do find that maybe they're not as perfect inside, so I'm losing a little bit when I cut them up. But they're not all like that, only a few of them. Now at the moment I'm just digging them as I need them, but over the next month I will dig up what's left and I will store them, because if I leave them in too long, they say the bad weather, but it's more actually the slugs and the wireworm that gets them if you leave them in too long. Once it starts getting colder and wetter, you just get so much damage to the actual potatoes that you really do have to get them up. So over the next month, another thing to go in the diary, I'm going to be doing that too. So as we move down, I think I've probably had my best year of squashes at the moment, and I've got absolutely tons of them. I've got all these ones here, and I've got another section over the other side. Despite the slug devastation and losing lots and lots of plants to slugs, once they actually came and started growing, I've just had loads of them, you know. So I'll be leaving mine on until mid-October. I know a lot of people are worried about the temperatures dropping, and they're going to be dropping in Kent. Now, all depending where you live, you might still want to cut your squashes and your pumpkins off sooner. We're getting temperatures that they say are going to drop down to about 5 or 6. While if you put the new plants out, the plants might struggle to survive. They're a little bit more hardy. It's only when it gets really, really cold at night that it's more of a threat. But obviously, all depending where you live in the country, you have to do whatever's right for you. But I'll definitely be leaving mine out for a few more weeks, because I like them to cure in the sun, and I'm waiting for the stems to die off more naturally, because then I know that the process of them ripening is a little bit better, which means they'll keep that a little bit better. Even though my courgettes look really, really sad, I'm still getting courgettes coming. So I've still got a spur there producing some lovely courgettes, and on these ones as well I've still got some lovely spurs of courgettes. This one on the other hand wasn't very good, but this one I've got some spurs there, and all throughout the plant I've got some more spurs with some little ones. So I know the plants look a little bit tired, and the squashes do too, but that's what they look like this time of year. I don't stress myself about the leaves not looking very good. I just let them be. You know, if there's particularly a lot of leaves, sometimes I trim them off, but I've not even done that this year. I've just let everything naturally die back, and obviously just keep harvesting what I'm getting. I've got the same thing with my cucumbers at home. Although the main stem of the plant looks really, really tired and almost dead, I'm getting new shoots coming off the ends, and all the time I'm still getting produce, I'm still going to keep harvesting. So I've got my tomatoes at home as well. Most of the leaves are stripped off because I remove all the leaves below the completed trusses of fruit. And I've been harvesting those in quite large quantities. They are a little bit later coming along than normal, but they are still coming along nicely, and I've been making loads of passata. I will put a link up on the screen and also one in the description if you wish to make my passata recipe. I make absolutely loads of it, and I freeze it so it keeps me through passata all throughout the winter and into the spring. It's an absolutely lovely and very easy recipe to make. And again, the same thing with the tomatoes, all depending what the temperatures are like where you are. I generally just leave mine out to ripen on the plant, and I know I stand the risk of maybe the cold weather getting to them, but I'd rather leave mine out for as long as possible and leave them on the plant for as long as possible so they ripen naturally. But that's just a choice that I make, and it works quite well for me, but obviously you need to do what works for you. So if we move down onto more produce. I've got my pet gooseberries, which I don't know whether we are going to get any this year. It's not something that's typically native to this country, but I do know some people that have grown it really well in the UK, and I'd love to get a comment from someone who is growing these really well. I've got loads of the little lanterns, and they've got little fruits in them, but they're not really getting very big, unfortunately, even though we're getting bucket loads of rain. Now maybe I need to look up on how to care for these a little bit more, so if anyone's got any top tips and they've grown them really, really well, I would absolutely love to know. Again, I'll just leave them and hope for the best. Keep following my channel so you can see whether I actually get any or not. So these are what's left of my cabbages. I've actually got through them quite quickly this year. I found some really good recipes, and in particular I've made some sauerkraut and also a version of kimchi from the new Hugh Fearnley-Whittinstall book, which I've got to say I've been really, really impressed with. And for someone who's an allotment holder, we all have lots and lots of fruit and vegetables, and I don't always think I eat them to the true benefit of growing them. Obviously I share a lot, I don't waste a lot, but looking for more versatile ways of using them and eating a more diverse amount of them is not only good for me, but it's also, you know, much better to be using what we're actually growing and far more sustainable. If you've not heard of the book, I really recommend it. We have got an allotment shop, and I do have to tell you I make a little bit of money out of it if you were to purchase something from it. We will put a link up on the screen and one also in the description, but at the moment I'm really, really impressed with it, and the kimchi and the sauerkraut that we're making is turning out really, really well, so I'm quite excited about that. It's got a mixture of obviously cabbage in it, and one's got cabbage in it, one's got I put some of my beetroots in one of them, so you know I'm really using lots of the things off of my allotments, of my onions, so it's a really good book to get, so you can take full advantage of the crops that you're growing and also makes you a lot healthier in the process. So as we move down, I've got my kale under here, which obviously I've been harvesting, and it's doing really, really well. I think I said before it's very much outgrowing the cover, but it's that time of year. If I'm honest, I need to get more sensible covering. But it's feeding us really well, and crispy kale is one of our favourite things, but again there's lots of exciting things you can be doing with kale as well. We've got our cut flowers, our satis flowers, which are absolutely fantastic. If you're looking for flowers to grow, these are really, really lovely because you can obviously cut them and have them fresh in water, or you can dry them, and they're just lasting, and sometimes they do overwinter as well, so we'll see what happens. My wildflower section is looking a little bit tired, but hopefully they're all seeding and they're all going to grow back next year, and there is still quite a lot of you know, bug and bee activity on them as well, even though they look a little bit tired. So obviously we're creating a better, you know, a better habitat for our allotment. I haven't had to, you know, I've had very little problems with pests this year, apart from slugs and snails. So things like bugs and things definitely haven't been as bad. So maybe this has made all the difference, and it looks beautiful as well. As we move over, we've got runner beans. So we've had lots and lots of bloom, and like what you often get with runner beans, the bloom doesn't quite match what you harvest. That being said, we are still getting quite a lot, and we've harvested quite a nice bunch of beans today, so a good few meals worth there. And no doubt we come up here, whereas in the height of the weather, you had to, you know, of the summer, you had to come up every 2 or 3 days. You can leave it a little bit longer, but no doubt in 2 or 3 or 4 days time I'll get another great big bunch of beans like that. I've got about 7 bags of beans and French beans frozen in the freezer, so they will definitely be keeping us going over the winter. And if you're watching this for the first time, I don't blanch my beans. I literally chop, prepare them, freeze them in a bag, lay them flat, and just take them out as and when I need them. So I've got more squashes here. So we've got some potato squashes here, which are quite lovely, exactly what they say on the tin. They're a little bit of a potato texture. I've got a little Turk's turban there and some more butternuts. So, and I've also got some pumpkins over there. So I really have got a real diverse amount. And there's some crown prints, I believe, as well. So like I say, I really do have. And this is just my extra little bit that I planted. I've got some lovely crown prints there. So I have been picking the odd squash. So although I generally leave them on for as long as I can before I store them, I am picking the odd one to eat, so I'm generally going for a butternut that looks nice and ripe, and I'm eating it. It doesn't matter if it's not completely ripe before you eat it, but just make sure it looks like the butternut colour, it's not still the pale colour. And I've been roasting them and doing all sorts of things with them, mashing them, and they've been all perfectly lovely. So these are my Jerusalem artichokes. They won't be ready yet, but I think in about October I have to cut the leaves down. I haven't grown these for a while, but someone very kindly gave me some and I've popped them in the ground. They do have a little bit of a reputation, artichokes for artichokes, but you know, they're very, very good for the gut. So another good thing to add to your diet. So that's those there. So I won't be digging those just yet, but about October time I can cut these stems down and then I can start taking the tubers out. So the French beans have pretty much finished and I'm just leaving them on there just to let a few swell out to save myself some seeds. So, I mean, I could still pick them off if I wanted to, but I've got so many runner beans, I might as well let these ones, let them swell out and then I can have my own seed. So, as we can see, so I've got more squashes there. I've got another couple of different type squashes there and I can't remember the names of them. I've got some spaghetti squash right over the back. And I've also got, I can't remember what those ones are, but anyway, you probably know what they are better than I do. I've got carrots in there, which I'm not digging any of those today because I've still got plenty of home, but I have got some quite decent carrots. The Enviromesh is definitely worth the investment. Definitely really helps with keeping the carrot fly off, and I think it almost keeps it a little bit warmer and a little bit moister under there as well. I've got some chard here, which is always great to have, and I've got some at home because you can just use it in so many dishes. You know, in stir fries, just stir it through rice, put it through pasta, put it into salad. Ridiculously versatile, ridiculously hardy. It isn't the most glamorous vegetable, but at least you've got something to eat virtually all throughout the year, and it's really easy to grow as well. My beetroots are doing really well. I'm not harvesting any today, but we have been harvesting it. I've just eaten some beetroot, just cooked and grated, but these are one of the things that we put into one of our ferments from that book that I recommended, and we're also doing some juices as well with them as well. So again, beetroot cake, there's some really diverse things you can do with them if you just look stuff up rather than just eating them the same way, to make things a little bit more exciting. And by getting some decent recipe books like the one I recommended or a different one, it gives you more scope and different things that you can do with it, so you don't get bored of it. It makes it more interesting and obviously better for you and better for the environment if you're using your own produce. So we've got a little bit more to look at on the allotment, but if you think you're getting value from this and you enjoy watching my channel, you can do something called Buy Me a Coffee. There is a link up on the screen and there's also one in the description. Don't feel you have to. If you just comment, like and subscribe, I would still be more than grateful. So let's move on to the rest of the plot. As we move up, I've got my little polytunnel here. We're not going to look inside because it does need a little bit of work. There's more weeds than there are plants, and some plants that are finished that I need to clear up. I've got some aubergines at home that are doing really, really well. There's a picture up on the screen. We always get grafted plants, so we've got really, really good aubergines since we started getting grafted plants. It was a complete game changer. So before that I used to grow from seed and I really struggled, but getting the grafted plants really does make all the difference. I get them from Sutton's, but I'm sure there's other places you can get them from too. So let's move up to this part of the allotment. Obviously my black currants are finished and they're all safely tucked up in the freezer or in my belly. And then we've got the leeks here. Now I've got to be honest, the leeks aren't looking as large as I would like them to look this time of year. So we're going to have to maybe give them a little bit of a weed and a feed, and hopefully they'll start to fill out a little bit more. But it is still quite early. It's only the beginning of September. Now if you've enjoyed watching this video and you would like to know what you can be sowing in September, there is a link up in the screen and there's also one in the description.